Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak, my man right there, the star of the show. Also, the other co-host, Steve Kallas. How are you this morning on this May 2nd, Stephen?
Well, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too. I know it's the Sport of Kings. It's your time of year. You got the Derby tomorrow. That's all you. We'll get to that in a little bit. But start with the NBA. Your Clippers hanging around. Sending it that series to a game 7 back in Denver. Lakers got eliminated in 5 games, and of course the Nova Knicks, led by Jalen Brunson, late shot helped to knock off the Pistons last night. So things heating up in the NBA.
Helped tremendously by Villanova's Bridges. I mean, it's just and Hart played well, but Brunson,
But he
who
was
was
with the Sixers, wasn't he a Sixer at one point for like an hour?
yeah, for 2 hours right on draft day. I
So
feel
maybe
I felt so bad for his mother, man, because she was working for the
just
six.
having a party, and oh my Lord.
But whatever. But Brunson was terrible in game five. To his credit, 4 for 16. I think he only had 16 points, but he is Mr. Clutch. They got that new award, Clutch Player of the Year, and he got that award. Well, he had 40 yesterday, including the game-winning three with a few seconds left. And look, that was a hell of a series. I thought the Pistons, obviously young, I thought they could have won that game. Uh, but the Knicks survived. I mean, the problem for the Knicks, and I know you know this, is they're like 0 and 10 against I think it's Boston and the Cavs and OKC. Now they got to go play Boston because Boston was the number 2 seed, not the number 1 seed. But give the Knicks credit; they won on the road. Brunson was key, but Bridges had that big left-handed tap and also that left-handed dunk. I mean, he had some very big plays in that game, and uh, and Hart is just a gritty guy. The only thing I don't like about him is he complains on every call. Every call that goes against him, I didn't foul him. And every time he gets touched, I got slaughtered. I'm surprised he doesn't get more texts, but
Little,
maybe
little,
they know
little
what's coming.
abrasive, little abrasive.
Yeah, he's a little abrasive. Denver Clippers, you know what I feel about Denver. They fired Mike Malone. I hope they lose game 7. It's going to be tough though. Denver's at home. Jokic is Jokic. Um,
And the
and
Clippers have
also
James
Murray,
Harden, who doesn't usually play well in game 7s, but we'll see.
he's played really well in this series. Of course, Kawhi has been Kawhi. And Murray is the one guy who has actually taken over a game. When he had that, what do you have, 43 the other night, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but I give the Clippers a lot of credit. I hope they win game 7. Um, I love Jokic, but I don't know. I just think it was so wrong to fire a guy 3 games, And Edelman, I think his name is, the new coach. He was like, well, the last 3 games, Malone wasn't the coach, and they won those 3 games to give them home court advantage in this
Mhm.
series. And he made a big deal out of that. And I don't remember their schedule, but I know they beat Sacramento the first of those 3 games. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure they had any like big upsets or
No, they'd be like
tough
the
games.
Washington Generals, like in the last two
I
games.
don't know if it was that, but it might have been like that. Um, and I don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers. LeBron has, I think it's like a $52 million player option, but they're now 2-12, their last 14 playoff games, and they got knocked out in the first round this year, in the first round last year. Minnesota's just better than them. They got the Ant-Man. Gobert had 27 points, 24 rebounds on Wednesday when they took out the Lakers in 5. I guess there's a criticism of Luka, but I think, as you always said, he's not really physically prepared, in shape,
Shame.
defense. And the big knock on the Lakers is now they don't have a center. And I think LeBron made a comment. I didn't listen to everything. They actually had a lot of his interview on Sports Center, but I didn't listen to it all. But one of it was, well, I'm not going to talk about the center or the lack thereof or something like that. And the center is, they're a different team. I'm not saying, look, Doncic is their man for the next 10 years. LeBron will be retired in another year or so, I'm guessing. Um, but I don't know if he's the guy who's going to win the championship. Whereas AD already has one, and he has one with LeBron. So we're going to have to see what happens. And I understand what the GM said. Essentially knocking Luka when he said, "Well, defense wins championships." Well, now they got the defense in AD.
Hmm.
Goodbye. And now the Lakers don't have AD. Goodbye.
Goodbye, right?
So it's very interesting. Uh, Rockets down 3-2. I think game six is tonight against the Warriors. The Warriors, I think they do have too much experience. The Rockets are really good. They're really talented, but they're really young. We talked about these teams, including the Cavs and OKC, who are better than the Rockets. But I think those teams are going to have trouble getting all the way to the finals. Uh, I'm thinking it's going to be Cavs and Boston, but we'll have to wait and see. The West is a lot tougher in my mind anyway. But the one final thing I wanted to say about all of this, and again, nobody cares about this, but the 7-10 thing.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Miami Heat because they came from 10th. They won two games. They're the number 8 seed, and then they proceed to get swept by the Cavs with the biggest point differential in the history of the
Yeah,
NBA.
122 points was
A
the
new record, right?
new record.
So come on, these are such meaningless,
30
disgusting,
points
made for
a game.
TV, made for TV games. And it was almost unfair. It was like a high school star varsity playing like the freshman team.
Well, Jimmy's over up in Northern California, so it makes a
Um,
difference,
Jimmy's the smartest of the bunch, frankly,
right?
because
Yeah,
he forced himself out, and they're talking about him like he's,
yeah.
a first ballot Hall of Famer, which, he might wind up being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I mean, Steph
But
said
he's the one that he's the
this is
one that
probably
I think they're like 23-7 with Jimmy Butler.
this is probably our last run together, with the boys. I mean, they don't have Klay Thompson anymore, but I think he's talking about like Draymond, him. And with Jimmy, I think someone's up. Maybe Draymond's done, or Jimmy's a free agent. So who knows if they're going to be? And they've won. Would they win four rings, 3 rings?
Four.
That's a that that's impressive to have
Two
that group.
for the record, two for Kevin Durant here, is just for the record.
Yeah, two of them. Well,
Who was the MVP both times?
Kevin
Kevin Durant.
Durant should have never, ever. He should not have left. He hasn't done. Look at what Durant's done since he's left. Nothing.
And he didn't want to come back.
That
Apparently there
team.
was a time, right, this year where maybe he'd go back. And
Right. That
like,
team could have
oh my God.
won, another three. I know he got hurt in the year that he was banged up pretty good, and then he came back a little early and his Achilles popped against the Raptors. That's the year the Raptors went on to win the whole thing. Probably, I think Golden State knocks the Raptors out if he doesn't get hurt. But he went to go play with James Harden and who were the big three? James Harden and I can't remember in Brooklyn. Can't remember the other guy for some reason. I'm blanking out, but they didn't really play together that much down the stretch, and that was it.
Oh, and just one word about the Bucks. It's hard to look. I give Lillard credit. He fought back. He came back from
Kyrie, I'm sorry,
injury.
Kyrie.
Now he tore his Achilles. All right, Kyrie was the third guy. You're right. Um, and I feel bad for him, but where are the Bucks going? Now the talk is the Greek going to force his way out?
They're too old. They've missed their window. And where if I was the Greek, yeah, I'd get out of there.
See, I give him credit because he did sign that big contract when he could have left and gone
Hmm,
anywhere, and he did
sure.
sign that big contract. He has won a championship. I thought he handled pretty well the whole thing with Halliburton's father. I mean, that was bizarre. I don't know what his father's thinking. And now he's not going to the playoff games anymore. Halliburton's father. I don't know who you think you are walking on the court. It's not you. It's your kid who's real good. I would say a couple of things though. When it was Halliburton who scored those, he scored 3 layups in 2 games that were like layups in the biggest. One was a dunk, and then the final one. Then when they eliminated the Bucks again, the Bucks weren't going to beat him. No Lillard again. Lillard, to his credit, came back, but then he tore his Achilles, so he's out probably all of next year, at least till the playoffs. I'm guessing. So I think the Greek might force his way out because he sees his window is going to start closing. He's got one.
Hmm.
Everybody who's got one, of course,
Yeah,
wants.
you make the club, but it would be a shame if that's what he ended up retiring with because he's a
Right.
generational guy.
I agree with that. So we'll see what happens. Of course, they're screaming in New York to get him because New York needs a super duper star. and then they have everything after
They have
that.
everything else. Why
And
why isn't
and
Kareem Towns or so, no, what's his name? Um, who came over from Minnesota?
Cat, yeah, Cat.
Cat. Why hasn't he made such a difference?
He's made a difference on occasion, but not a consistent
That's
difference.
what I mean. Like on occasion, yeah, but I mean, he was supposed to be that.
That's the knock. But Carl Anthony Towns has never seemed to be that guy 110% every
Right.
night. I mean, he's made some incredible threes from way beyond the three-point line now. So he's a complete player. And sometimes it looks like when he gets angry, frankly, he plays better.
Yeah, yeah.
But is he coming tonight? Yeah, we don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. I mean,
And
it's
I think Boston has so dominated them that I think the Knicks are in big trouble. But I guess you can tell me it's Celtics 4-0, three was slaughters.
hmm
And the fourth one that they won, Jaylen Brown played with a bad knee. And now, as far as I know, not only do they have this rest, people are going to say, well, did they rest too long in the first game? The
Rest
rest.
versus rust always.
But most importantly, Tatum will be 100%. And at this time of year, we say it all the time. What's the most important thing? Health.
Health. Totally.
So I don't think that's going to be a close series. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. The Knicks are a very, very good team, but I think you'd have to drop in a superstar at the top. Is Brunson the number one superstar to win a title? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. He's not a defender. He's not a big guy. He's a great player.
He
I
is
mean,
a great player. He's kind of. I hear
he,
you. I hear you.
he's put himself in the Hall of Fame talk, I think.
Totally. I
He is.
mean, he was Dallas property. Dallas, let him go. Let him go. And went with Kyrie. But,
Well,
it's
if you asked the GM of Dallas if he was the GM back then, he'd say, well, defense wins championships. Forgot to add defense wins championships if your good defense is on the court.
right. Yeah,
They left
exactly.
that part out.
Totally. All right, let's hey, it's spring has sprung and of course the NHL playoffs. Couple teams moving on. The Panthers have moved on, and Ovi and the boys have moved on. So things getting a little narrow there. Capitals, you know, Capitals should be in the mix to make, a run at the thing. Ovi could make a serious run. I mean, President's Trophy this year, and he's had a phenomenal year. And don't forget Florida. Look, they won a cup. They went to the cup the year before, but still, and they have Brad Marchand now. Amazing how Boston, they won like a record many games and points 2 years ago when Florida knocked them out of the first round. They didn't make the playoffs this year. Did not make the playoffs, and they're already on their second coach, second or third. I mean, Jim Montgomery, they didn't re-sign him. He goes to Dallas. They're still in the mix. And Claude Julien, I know the Boston fans are still complaining that they got rid of Claude Julien, but 2 years later, they're out of the playoffs. That's amazing to me.
A couple of things. The Oilers eliminated the Kings for the fourth year in a row,
Yeah,
and the Kings won the first two games of that series.
amazing.
Then they benched Skinner, their number one goalie, and Calvin Pickard won four games in a row. Oilers beat the Kings last night 6-4, empty net goal at the end, of course. But you thought maybe that the Kings were finally going to beat the Oilers, and it just didn't happen. I also saw the one game I thought when I thought they were just trying to get physical and beat up everybody, but that didn't work. A shout out to the Maple Leafs, who we've talked about for years. I
How
think
about
one year
that?
I picked that one year I picked them to win the Stanley Cup, and of course they couldn't get out of the first round. This is the second playoff series they've won in the last 20 years. And people were saying they were going to choke because the Senators came back to bring it up to 3-2. But Matthews scored a goal early. They wound up winning 4-2, and they wound up winning the series 4-2. So, you got to give him credit. Brady Tkachuk, who played, he was in that Four Nation thing. It was great.
Yeah,
He scored a goal for the Senators, but it just wasn't enough. They're just not quite there yet. But the Maple Leafs, Nylander had two goals. Matthews had a goal. I don't know where Tavares is, but I know he's a real good player because he left the Islanders, and they had the
yeah,
picture.
John Tavares. Yep.
They had the
36 years
picture of
old though.
him.
He's getting up there.
They had a picture of him when he was a kid wearing Toronto Maple Leafs pajamas. So he already He always, I guess he was from Toronto, I think, but he always wanted to play for Toronto. So give them credit. The other guy I wanted to mention is our guy, Flory, who unfortunately they went out. They lost to Vegas 4 games to 2 yesterday, and it's Fleury's last game. But I think he's the first ballot Hall of Famer. He's got 575 wins. I think he's second all time to Brodeur, maybe. And
Amazing.
he won 3 cups.
And he's won 3 cups. You know how many Marty Brodeur's won?
Three, I think,
Three.
right?
He's won three.
So we'll see what happens there. Finally, the Avs beat Dallas 7-4. That's two empty netters. Was a very close game, and that's going to be an interesting game seven.
Love me some game seven. Love me some game seven this time of year. Even a little overtime game seven.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
weren't you surprised? I was surprised that the Panthers handled the Lightning that easy. I guess I'm living in the Lightning's past.
Yeah, they handled them a little more easier than I thought, but I didn't think that was going to be a series that would have matched the hype leading up to it because you're looking at a trend for the Lightning going down since they won their last cup, went to a cup final, lost it, and then they've kind of taken steps back since. So and Florida again, you don't know when they're even have they peaked yet? I don't know. They won a cup, went to one, which is really hard to do, losing in the final, then going back the next year.
Right.
Then they win. They blew a 3 game to none lead, but then it ended up getting it together in game seven against the Oilers. And no reason to think that they're not gonna, a lot of times in hockey you flip the switch and you can notice such a big difference in the play in the playoffs. And you can see it in other sports too, but really hockey, there's really a discernible difference. It's like
Yep, you're right.
it's a different the intensity and the it's like effort. Everyone's diving and blocking shots and getting black eyes, and it's really I mean I love it. That's why I'm not even regular season. I'll watch it, take it or leave it. But man, when the playoffs amp up, 2 months of that, yeah, I'll take that. Major League Baseball, we got a guy hitting 4 home runs in a game. His team loses. Mike Trout's hurt again. The Phillies are, team average, while the Mets keep killing it, even though Soto has, 3 home runs right now in, 31 games. So,
After hitting two yesterday, I think it was.
yeah, and he hit two yesterday, right?
And they lost. And they lost. But yeah, I'm trying to pronounce his name correctly because it looks like Eugenio to me, but it's a Eugenio
Mhm.
Suarez of the Diamondbacks. Hit 4 home runs. I think they said he had 1 home run in his last 72 at bats or something. But the 4 home run thing is so interesting. It's only happened 19 times, but when you look at the list, there's like 10 guys you don't even know. I should also point out he's the second guy to hit 4 home runs, then they lose the game, which Suarez afterwards, he was totally shocked that he did it, but he kept talking about himself and what a great day it was, and and I go, well, I was beyond my wildest dreams, and then I thought somebody was going to raise his hand and says, you lost, right?
Right.
And I know the other guy who lost. Maybe you saw the thing, ESPN, 19 4 home run games, 24 perfect games. So it's harder to hit 4 home runs in a game than to throw a
And
perfect
perfect
game,
game. Yeah,
which is
amazing.
which is interesting. But I knew there was a guy named Ed Delahanty who lost. It was like in the 1890s. He hit 4 home runs and they lost the game. But my friend Joe Heinzman told me in that game, because he's nuts like me, in that game, Ed Delahanty hit 4 home runs. Two were inside the park. But if you look at the history of baseball, the fields were so far
So
back,
deep.
way back when. Now they've been,
Hmm.
including Yankee Stadium, by the way. But now they're much closer. And I remember writing an article about Roberto Clemente, and they talked about Mike and the Mad Dog years ago. They like criticized him for not having power, and they were talking to Duke Snyder, and Duke Snyder said, "You guys are nuts." He had tremendous power, and I went and did some research and the center field fence in Forbes Field was so far back that they took the batting cage that they used before the game and they left it out in left center field during the game. So that gives you some kind of sense of what
I
it was
love
like
that.
way back when.
That's tremendous.
But 4 home runs in the game is a tremendous accomplishment, but you'd like to win the game. Soto hit 2 home runs. He's now got 3 home runs in 31 games. And we talked before the season how he doesn't have Aaron Judge hitting behind him. I don't care who the Mets have hitting behind him, including Pete Alonso. If you got
Hmm.
Judge hitting behind you, you're going to see a lot of fastballs and a lot of good
Sure.
hits. Um, And also, he doesn't have that right field porch. Now, he's got good power up the middle and even the other way, but he doesn't have that right field porch where you don't get it good. You hit a fly ball to right field. It's a home run in Yankee Stadium and oftentimes nowhere else. It's a
I
reason they
know.
call it the house that Ruth built, the
Yeah, sure.
original.
Yeah, you can pop a few out over there.
So, but hey, the Mets are 21-11. Give them a lot of credit. They got the best record in baseball, and they've done it to me anyway without Soto. I think he's hitting like 240 or something. So, look, if he gets hitting, they're going to be real tough. I didn't want to mention Brandon Nimmo. You know, I'm a Yankee guy, but Brandon Nimmo had nine this past Monday. He had nine RBIs in the game. The only other Met, and they beat the Nationals 19-5. He was 4 for 6 with two home runs, and nine RBIs. And the only other guy who ever did it for the Mets was Carlos Delgado.
Wow.
If you ever watch pictures of Carlos Delgado, the ball jumped off his bat like nobody else, I always thought.
Exploded.
And strong guy, tough guy. And the only other thing I wanted, which is really weird, the Yankees this past Tuesday against the Orioles for the second time this year, the first three guys up hit home
Home
runs.
runs.
And that's never happened like twice in 1 year. You remember the one they did March 29th against Milwaukee? It was like 60, 65 degrees. And on Tuesday in New York, it was 80 degrees. I assume it was close to 80 in Baltimore. But it's the second time it ever happened. Um, and it's the first time ever in MLB that it happened that you had two times they did it in the same season. They did win that game for the record because, again, when you set these records, you got to win the game.
It's much better if you win the game. Totally. Well, I mentioned it when we first came on, and it's your day tomorrow, brother. Kentucky Derby.
Well, first Saturday in May, it's not what it used to be. Uh, Whenever I look at these books from the mid 20th century, the first 50 years of the 20th century, 1900 to 1950, it was baseball, boxing, and horse racing.
Hmm.
Flash forward 75 years now, baseball is not the number one sport by a long shot. Football has easily overtaken it. Some would argue basketball has taken over baseball. Uh, Horse racing, I love it, but the reason it was so popular was the only place you could legally bet. And now that's a joke. And boxing, I can't even tell you who the heavyweight champion of the world is.
No idea.
And I think
Ingemar Johansson? I had no idea.
I thought they ruined themselves when they started with the pay-per-view on cable TV.
Sure, sure.
Because in the old days, you got to see these things on TV. You turned your TV.
Yeah. And that was great back in the old days. Ali and Frazier and those fights,
Exactly.
George Foreman.
But I have to say, I'm a little disappointed after watching all these prep races the last couple days. Um, I really like the horse named Rodriguez. Bob Baffert has been suspended the last few years, and now he
He's
had
still
two horses
suspended?
named. No, he's got two in the Derby, but the Rodriguez horse, who is the horse I like to win the Derby, got scratched yesterday.
Ah,
Something
healthy.
wrong with
Was
one
he
of
a healthy scratch?
uh, Actually, not a healthy scratch because it's the Derby. If there's any way they could have
Right.
raced, it would. Um, so that's who I really like. Now, the favorite is journalism, and I'm not going to pick the favorite, but he's going to be there. Um, and I thought Rodriguez could beat him, but I'm going to go with a long shot. I just want to give you a little bit about him because, again, I had to literally change everything this morning. Which I remember one time when we were doing this show, the morning of the Derby, the I can't remember what year it was. The morning of the Derby, we almost came on the air, but we saw it at like 8 in the morning that the favorite had been scratched. But I like a horse, the 9 horse named Burnham Square, and he won the Bluegrass, which these prep races now you could look at them all day and say, well, yeah, he won the Bluegrass, but. Or the horse I liked won the Wood Memorial, but he scratched. But I'm gonna go with a horse named Burnham and journalism. I like him 1-2-2-1 with a bunch of other horses. I wish so because Rodriguez scratched. Now Rodriguez had the 4 post, but because this horse was 21st on the list, he was not going to be in the race. I thought maybe when he gets in because the 4 scratched that he gets the 4, but he doesn't. He gets the 20. So much as I think he could win the Derby if he was inside, I don't think he can win from the 20. So I'll give you like four horses, I'll give you that you could do, triples or exactas. I like Burnham. I now like Burnham Square to win the race. But I'll give you Burnham Square, Grande, Journalism, the favorite,
I'm
and I'll
going
give
journalism.
Baeza maybe to, close from. He leaves. He's got speed, so he's going to leave. But again, it's very hard to be in the mix from the 20. But I give him a chance to be in the mix. Maybe he could win. That's my quick Derby thing, but I'm very disappointed because I wish this Rodriguez horse could have raced. And I think he was like 12 to 1 morning line. I think he would have got bet. Because he's kind of the hot horse who's now scratched.
Why is he scratched?
He's got something wrong with one of his hoofs, I think. I forget what
Oh,
it
the
was. It
hoof.
was an infection or some swelling. To their credit, I mean, look, you want to race in the Derby, but you're not going to race a horse who's injured in the Derby. And I
Right.
like him in the Preakness. Can I say that now?
Yeah, why not? You already got your horse in for the Preakness. Well, I'm going journalism, so I'm going to go journalism in the Preakness too. I got back to back.
He's
Good
the
stuff,
best.
man. Good stuff. Well, see, I love the Derby. I really do. It really is great 2 minutes. Even if I don't have, any skin in the game. But you can catch Steve's stuff on his daily Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas, his videos on westchestercountypost.com. This podcast on YouTube and all the, the audio outlets, Spotify, Apple, etc. You can find me on Instagram at Joe Staszak 4799 or on X at Joe Staszak 975. Stephen, great job, my friend. Have a great weekend. And folks, we appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, pal. We'll talk to you. Talk to you this weekend.